condors, especially during the day fire, were known to congregate at this area. And condors still roost on a lot of the lookout towers, even the Nordhoff lookout, which is just the platform up at right above town here. I was at Nordhoff with my Cub Scouts on last week, actually, a week ago yesterday. We were standing there and I was telling about condors and about, all the micro trash cleanups we've done. Good job, boys, but I really wanted to drive the point home so they saw that there were actually condors in the area, but you can't wish one of those to happen. Then, of course, it was either you or your brother. She goes, "There's a condor! Dad, get my zoom lens!" And the condor swooped right over us, did one big arc, and then flew off. And later we tracked the number, and it's a female who lives in the north rim of the Grand Canyon, but is known to wander. Condor 616. 616, yeah. What tag 16, but it's purple tag, so it's 616. She's known to wander, so she'll go from the Grand Canyon and do like a 3-day tour out to Hopper Canyon, and then Bitter Creek, and then swing by Nordhoff, and then go out past the Sespe Sanctuary and go home. Yeah, it's pretty wild. But anyway, this shows the interior. Is one of those in the bed? Or is that just the stove and the chair? So that's just the interior. It shows the old Westinghouse stove, and one of the old historical maps is still in the tower. I'm surprised it hasn't been stolen yet. Okay, that's the Cuyama Peak lookout before it collapsed a couple of years ago. One thing I wanted to point out about the Thorn Point lookout is that you can still, if you can do the hike, you can climb the stairs and still go inside the lookout. One of the cool things you'll find is that on the old cot, the old metal cot, each one of the legs of the bed has a big old glass insulator upside down, used as like a, I don't know what you would call that, but it's a foot for each post, and that's used in case the ranger was on the bed and lightning hit, it would distribute the electricity. This is the old Cuyama Peak lookout, which was the same design, also built in '34. It's since collapsed down on itself. This is the old Topa Topa lookout out in Topa Topa Peak. It was built a little later than some of the others, I think '38, and it was also extremely expensive at the time because it was so remote, so difficult to get to, that some of the people in the Department of Agriculture questioned the need for it. Then when they formed the sanctuary in '47, it was basically off limits, so nobody was visiting it. So it had a fairly short life, so it was very well preserved because it was incredibly difficult to get to and was not shot up. But it was not saved in time during the day fire in September '06. It was burned over. But I love the photo here that the Ontario County Sheriff's Department shows one of their choppers landing or touching down there, and it shows the lookout and kind of the whole scene looking back toward Ojai in the snow. Am I talking too much? Okay, carry on. Oh, and then this is part of the trail up to Reyes Peak. One of the namesakes of Jacinto Reyes. And that was probably one of the most beautiful, but one of the most short-lived lookouts. This is my daughter's dog, Lily, on her first lookout. Heart puppy, could you put that away? All right. Next slide, please. This shows the lookout shortly after it was built in 1927. And it and the Santa Paula Peak lookout and a few others were notable because they weren't built with the big steel I-beams that most of the other lookouts were built with. This is built with native timber from the area, so the frame was largely a sugar pine. And it was on a 10-foot platform with a 14 by 14 foot, or a 10-foot tower with a 14 by 14 foot platform. And, really beautiful designs, white, I'm sure it was lead paint, but beautiful white paint, and, green shutters and a green steepled roof. And it burned in the 1932 Manitowoc fire, so it was beautiful for 5 years. But even now, if you hike there, you can still see the old metal cot all twisted and beat up down, and the casters are still on it. Down in the rocks below, a lot of the rebar and concrete footings are still there. And out in the field nearby, where they would pasture their horses, there's a huge section of the roof is still out there, even 80 years on. And the next photo is of Ranger Green, who manned the lookout. The one on the right is of Ranger Green and his wife. There at the lookout, and that's on the left is a close-up of some of the wood structures. Other structures on the forest included, what am I looking at there? Oh, Pine Mountain Lodge. And everybody here I'm sure is going to have stories about Pine Mountain Lodge, so I'll keep this one short. This was built in the late 1800s by a group that called themselves the Sisquoc Rangers. And it was used by Boy Scouts. It was used as a de facto, not Forest Service official, but it was a de facto station at points. And Ranger Box actually has a lot of cool information about that. So if I may lend you the microphone if you want to speak to it a bit.
Well, when I came around, the lodge was already down, but the reason it came down is the ranger at the time, I don't remember what his name was, but he went up there to take care of a snag that was leaning over the tree. Apparently he was a timber beast guy, and he made a mistake, and it crushed the lodge, you know, so it was, when I came around, there was only like three or four logs left and a fireplace. That's all I remember of my first seeing it. But otherwise, they had purchased all the supplies to rebuild this and improve this structure before the tree fell on it.
I have a photo here, Ranger Box, from 1966 that shows kind of those bottom three layers and the chimney.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the next photo is from 69. These are some Boy Scouts camped at the ruins of the lodge, and you can still see the stone chimney there. So I think that's pretty sweet. And Earl Stanley Gardner was a frequent visitor to the lodge, was he not? Oh, okay. I believe he was. Earl Stanley Gardner, known for his Perry Mason fame, was a frequent visitor to the lodges.
You said there were rocks left of the chimney, or is it all gone?
Well, these days
They're gone
now. Yeah, but as late as the early 70s, there was a lot of the chimney left.
Now we always have a lot of bears up there, so I was up there one time and the sign was down and it was chewed up by the bears. It was a nice sign at one time, and so that's the route that the telephone line took that J.D. Reyes was proud of, because now he has communications with Ojai, and it went over the mountain and went through Pine Mountain Lodge. And so I climbed the tree and I took part of that wire down and I strung that sign up, and I bet it's still up today. It was a long time it's been up there because no one can reach it.
They're using a lot of the wire from the old cable lines to keep the sign intact. It's kind of stitched together. Yeah, it's still there. Actually, Grace, if you could go back, Harry, I have some photos of some of the condors near the Nordoff Peak area. So Grace, if you could go to 18. And just of Nordoff Peak in general. So here's one of our beloved condors. This is actually one that lives in Hopper Canyon, but has been seen over Nordoff a few times. The next photo is, I'm not sure what the story on this photo is, but this is a immature condor, so you can see the difference. They don't quite have all the white, and they don't have the yellow, kind of telltale, pink bald buzzard head. And then in this next slide, lent to me by Mary Louie, thank you very much, that is a condor sitting on the Nordoff lookout superstructure.
That's actually Doug Freeman's photo,
Yes.
Sandy Bueckley's son's photo.
There you go, okay. See, she knows.
I got it from Mary.
Yeah. Actually, I got it from Mary and I sent it to you. And she goes, man, don't cut me out. So this was during the day fire, and there were people on, and I don't know, my understanding was the people were on the tower.
Yeah.
Yes.
The condor still landed there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that's proof of how dumb they are, but it is proof. Okay. When in doing these projects with my cubs, minor segue, I was really hopeful that they'd get to see one. So the next photo is from last weekend. I don't know if that comes out. It's down it's with a light on it. It's probably hard to see, but we were up there last weekend for the Draconides meteor shower. So at the bottom left, you can see the tower lit up at night and all the stars. And then the next shot was at lunchtime the next day, and the condor that went over us. And, well, you know, a bunch of 9-year-old kids who've never seen a condor before. It was like, it's, you know, lifeless moment, right? And then a couple other images I came across recently of Nordhoff include this one, though. This is from our service project we did last year. We were camped under the tower. And then the next photo shows the second incarnation of the lookout. And the first one, and Ringelbach's correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the first Nordhoff Tower was burned in the 48 Wheeler fire. And then in 1950, years ago, you know, Rincon Mountain out in Carpinteria, where now Verizon or whomever has all the communication towers, used to be part of what was then the Santa Barbara National Forest, and they sold that part of the land off. In 48, after the first Nordhoff Tower burned, they unbolted the Rincon lookout, got a heavy lift helicopter, and flew it over what is now, but wasn't at the time, Lake Casitas. Dropped it in and bolted it back in place. So that's the second incarnation, was the old Rincon Mountain lookout. And then the next photo I came across only recently shows 2 spotters, and I don't know who, but you can see the device there on the left, the round device, is the Osborne firefinder, which is an Alliday, where they get, you know, they have the, it was all brass, very pretty, and they have a round map with all the townships and ranges and sections marked out, and they were able to spot if they saw fire activity where it was, and they could call it in. So this is a photo of the interior of the Nordhoff lookout, which is, I think, the only photo I've ever been able to find. Go ahead, Mike. Oh.
Want me to show the potholes cabin?
Yeah. Mary, go ahead.
Sure. This is,
There's another structure.
has anybody been to the potholes before?
Uh-oh.
The what?
It's kind of an awkward place to find. It's behind Lake Piru. So currently, it's kind of landlocked in the sense, there's a gate, and then you have to go 4.5 miles up a paved road. This is the road that used to take you to the old Blue Point campground, which has been shut down for environmental reasons for a long time. But, so you have to go 4.5 miles behind the lock gate, which is legal to do, walking, horse, or bicycle, for that 4.5 miles. And then once you get to what is the trailhead, then you hike on up. The trail's been in disrepair for quite a few years. They had a fire a number of years ago called the Piru Fire. Most of our trails do not get worked unless there's a fire. There's no recreation money. The rehab money comes from the fire. And then you have